Welcome to Aunty Lous Hour. If you like this podcast, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.
No, Anita Burns from Manchester. How are you?
Ta-da. I'm really good. Good morning. I don't know what the weather's like with you. We've got hailstone and rain.
Yeah, it's raining today, but have you got a cuppa? Have you got a drink with you?
Hot water.
That's what I'm on, hot water. Okay, my darling, I think you're a little bit of a firecracker, you. I met you at a training
Maybe.
event around beauty, HIV in the beauty industry, but we can talk about that later. I just want to go straight in with you, my love. You've been living with HIV. What was life like before HIV?
Oh my gosh. Well, I only discovered I was HIV positive in 1995. And so before that, I'd got married at 17 to my partner who was in the army. Sadly, he'd had a road traffic accident, which left him severely disabled. We then came back from Germany. Luckily, I was pregnant before he was injured. His injuries were very severe. But the good thing was, I was like, I'm pregnant, there's a future, we're going to get on with this. Then my son was pregnant, get any worse. Well, guess what? Hold on to your knickers, Lou. So 5 years later, I moved back up north. My husband was into care. I'd already started working with people with HIV in London. Never ever, even though I'd always had quite a lot of gay friends, always hung around in the LGBTQ community, never did I believe that this illness that I knew affected a lot of my friends, that affected a lot of people that were gay, did it affect me? Because I'm heterosexual, it's not something that's even in our world to even think about. And of course, we all know the old tombstone and all the horrible information, the misinformation we were given, that people believed. So it just never affected me, I thought. So life was a little bit I do like having a muddled life though. So life was going on, but it was quite a lot. And then I donated blood. And that's how we found out. Up until that stage, and because of my husband's severity of his illness, he kept getting MRSA. He probably never had MRSA. He probably was a HIV result, and it was the HIV affecting his body. But of course, we're married, we're white, we're from England. It doesn't affect us, and they never tested. There was so much ignorance around that. And then I donated blood. And that day when my blood donation came back, I was actually working with a community aid support team in Body Positive Blackpool at the time. And they sent me a letter, just said, there's a major discrepancy in your blood donation. I was like, okay. Went to Lancaster to be met by a gentleman who obviously had the short straw of doing this. I mean, Lou, back in 95, it was something we talked about. We didn't expect to have to do. And this gentleman then told me that he wanted more blood to come back. I said, no, you told me today. And he was like, you've got HIV. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, no way. And then I was like, oh my God, everything that had ever been said to me, all the things about my son's immune system, about his lack of ability to build, and he always needed antibiotics. I was like, geez, I said all this to this guy. And he was like, don't be ridiculous. Your son was treated in Guy's Hospital. It's one of the best teaching hospitals in the country. If he had HIV, we would know. And I realised at that point, he didn't with me. I don't hold anger to him, but he basically then just said, don't you find it quite convenient, Mrs. Binns? You move back up north to where your family and friends are, you donate blood, and you just so happen to be working with HIV and AIDS. I was like, wow. So I left. Luckily, one of the social workers I was working with picked me up at Preston. I'd rang my son's school. He was 5.5 then. and said his dad was ill, needed to take him. I mean,
Mm.
to do on children in 95 was quite rare. It
Yeah.
wasn't something we'd all trained, not we, but they trained for. It wasn't something you think, oh, today we're going to do this.
Yeah.
So luckily, because I knew the people at the GUM, and because of my volunteering, they were like,
So
okay.
what's GUM?
Oh, genital, I should know that. Genital urinary medicine.
Oh, right,
So
okay.
what do you call it in London?
Gynae clinic? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, we just got the GUM.
Okay. Yeah,
It
yeah.
has changed recently. I can't remember what the new terminology to make you feel better about going into it
Okay.
anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, sexual health.
Oh,
So
oh,
we went to the GUM.
we used to call it the clap clinic.
I was going to call it the clap clinic, right? And I thought, how inappropriate in this conversation. I was trying to be politically correct then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we went to the GUM clinic, and they were ready. They closed
Yeah.
the clinic early, and we tested him.
Mm.
And to Les, who's the clinic manager, came back, and he never even said the words. And
Mm.
just the look on his face, and knowing
Mm.
that the choices,
Yeah.
the lifestyle,
Yeah.
whatever, has now affected the only thing that you
Mm.
love in life. And we just had a young family in Preston, where the
Mm.
mother was a known drug addict and street worker. Her
Mm.
status had become knowledge, not dissing
Yeah.
council estates, born and brought up on them. And the council estate gossip got hold of this.
Yeah.
There were books that maybe the child was infected. And the parents rushed that school. They dragged the child out. The poor teachers were in turmoil. Nobody knew quite what to do, and the police were involved. The child was then moved. But the stigma, the hatred,
Yeah.
the violence that we just dealt with in helping this poor young family, because of what was happening. And I just watched all this, and I was looking at my child thinking, every hope and dream that we ever had for you, it's gone. We've
Yeah.
taken it all away because um, we didn't do viral load then. We used to do CD4 count.
That's
So
it.
they
Yeah.
took a lot of bloods. Luckily, Alan Lyons, who was the social worker for HIV, back in the daily when there was money, money and funding for us. He stayed overnight at my house because obviously they were concerned.
Hmm.
On the Monday we were back, and it was kind of a blur the whole weekend, I'll be
Can
honest.
imagine.
Um,
Yeah.
and on the Monday we went back to the GUM clinic to be told my son's viral and CD4 was 0.
Oh my
Mine,
gosh.
yeah, mine was 3. And we were given, well, my son was given 6 to 8 months, and I was given about a year. So then it was like, wow, after everything that had happened in our
Yeah.
little lives, I was like, this
Yeah.
cannot get. The one mistake we did make, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, is that the GUM requested my son's notes from Guy's Hospital, who I will
Right.
never, ever be angry at, because a lot of children born at that time died. So whatever treatment they gave my son, whatever they did, I will be forever grateful, and I will love
Grateful.
them
Yeah.
for it. I'm not an NHS basher. I never understand people who get that.
Mm.
Well, I do in some cases. But anyway, they literally got this letter, Lou, and went,
Yeah.
what the actual fuck?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have been
Wow.
so blindsided, because what they saw was a white middle class. I'm calling myself
Yeah.
that because it sounds better. But
Yeah.
a white middle class lady who's married.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have it. Nobody ever looked at us and just thought we're human. Any human being can get HIV, no matter whether you are a
Yeah.
princess, no matter whether you
Yeah.
are sweeping the streets.
Mm,
You
mm.
are you are at risk of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he was never tested. My son never had cancer. So it was a pretty rocky time over the 6 8 months. I then realised that, well, if we're going to die, we're going to die. So I remortgaged my house. So this is a
Yeah.
warning alert to anyone listening. If someone tells you that you're terminally ill, don't get into debt. And
Yeah.
I can prove that because I didn't
Yeah.
die. So I
Yeah.
remortgaged my house. Got a bit of a loan. Went on some amazing holidays. Did some
Yeah.
amazing things. And then started to realise actually we're doing all right. My
Yeah.
son was very ill. He was 10, and he had meningitis 3 times. We sat waiting for him to die. I remember one particular time. There's an amazing, amazing children's hospice near us, Darien House, and they loved Glenn so much. And it was hard because a lot of people didn't accept us in them days. When we applied to go to Darien House, it was like, oh.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
just hold on and let us catch our breath with this. I mean, luckily, straight away, well, not straight away, but a few weeks later, they said, yes, we can accept him. But the fear, the not knowing. So even looking at our care then, was the hospices didn't really want to take us. Home care wasn't very good. Luckily, there were volunteers like myself that did care in the home. But then the other side of it was, what if he outlived me? And I was like, oh. So it was a question that was asked me about 3 months later. And I was like, I never thought about that.
You're, you've,
I don't know what we're going to do.
you've really been through the mill. Blimey. That's a lot, Anita, and you're sitting here kind of smiling, lovely energy, and that's kind of like real, yeah, wow, is all I can say. How did you? I think it was quite interesting what you said about getting into loads of debt, thinking this is going to be the end of it. When did things start changing for you?
Um, about about 9 10 months later, I had like well, no, I wouldn't say I was dead straight. I was still breaking down.
Yeah,
My behaviour was erratic. 1 minute I'd be okay, the next minute I was
yeah,
like, oh, look at the world, and I'm going to walk down the
yeah,
street um, and I look back at them times and I laugh. I laugh at her and I go, God, you're a nutter. And she does come back in my life some days,
yeah,
some weeks.
yeah,
But she's part of me. She's part of helping me grow.
yeah.
But there were some
I,
times out.
I, I, I really,
But
I really like the way that you said that. That you're talking to a part of yourself and you say she comes back in. Because I say that as well. I've lived with a lot of shame because of HIV, like just because of that, but HIV enhanced it. And this shame will look for anything to cling to. And sometimes I feel fine and the shame's away, and sometimes it comes back in. So it's always going to be there. It's just how we manage it. So hearing you speak like that, I really resonate that you get as part of you that will always be there. And sometimes it comes in and sometimes she goes. Yeah.
I think we all have different parts of us. Some of them we might not like. Some of them we
Mm.
go, gosh, how did I even invent you? But it's
Yeah.
part of us.
Yeah.
On the whole, I think I'm a really good person. I'm a kind person. But I can also be erratic, a little bit
All right, bitch.
crazy. Yeah. Oh, I love a good bitch sometimes. But we'll have to do that off screen.
Off
Um,
camera. Yeah.
Yeah, off camera. But yeah, I think the hardest thing is for people, like I listen to people, and I have done it. Well, I've been positive more than I've been negative in my life. As we were only diagnosed in 1995, I obviously was positive when I was pregnant. So I've been positive since around 17, but it could have been earlier. Neither me or my husband were virgins when we met. We're not the type of pointy blame people. If he was alive now, or if he'd survived, would we have stayed together? I'd like to hope we would have. But sadly, he passed in 1998 with his injuries. But I look back and I go, there is no blame. I watch some people, Lou, and they are so caught up in blame. And and that's when I say that other people are going to blame, the anger, the shame, the hatred, and the things we do to ourselves, because we might not self-abuse. Like I found self-harming became part of what I did. Whether it be through alcohol, drugs, cutting myself, that became part of me. And yeah, and getting rid of that. I mean, I only really got rid of alcohol in 2020, so I don't have it in my house anymore. I've stopped allowing it. I had a bit of a blip at the weekend, and I was on my way back to my house, and I was like, oh, I could just get half a bottle of vodka. Oh, in fact, no, if I just get a small bottle of vodka and some Coke, I'll be fine. That's pouring Coke.
Can I ask you?
And I'll be fine. But I didn't. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you about the alcohol, because it's really good speaking to another woman who's living with HIV, who used to like a little bit of the old alcohol. I mean, I say to myself, I'm guessing that I was probably en route to being a functioning alcoholic. I never went as bad. When I say as bad, I shouldn't say the word bad, but never got to a stage where, I didn't think I could control it, but I think I was borderline. And so I stopped because I don't know how to regulate. And I was drinking for that feeling. I was drinking to let go. I was drinking alcohol to forget. I was drinking alcohol because it was quick. I was drinking alcohol because it was just me and the alcohol. I was drinking alcohol to feel something. And I was drinking alcohol not to feel anything. So I was drinking it for all those reasons. And now I don't drink, not because I can't, but because I don't want to. When I got married last year, I didn't have any at my wedding. I didn't drink. I didn't drink alcohol at my wedding because I didn't feel that I needed it. That's just my particular story. What was your relationship like with alcohol?
I know that alcohol has covered my shame from a lot of things in my childhood, and a lot. It's been a cloak over my life for most of my life. And then sadly, just because I am quite a lively character, I know you're shocked. I went into running. I went into running bars, working in bars, general manager of a nightclub, running clubs, venues. That I can honestly say that there was, when I came back to England from Gran Canaria, it was about 11 years ago now, I started running a club for my friend. And I think I was half sober for about an hour a day. I was constantly drinking. I was never completely sober. And that was for about 2.5 years I was there. And I used that as a cloak. And when I came out of that situation, I realized I came out because of I knew what was happening. I was like, I need to step away, because it was too easy. You have a drink with somebody, there's always a reason. I'm doing a line clean, I might as well have a few pints. And it just continued, that you realize that alcohol has massively had a control over your life. Massively.
Oh yeah. And I like the way that
it up.
Yeah, I like the way that you said it, because it controlled. I don't know if you smoke cigarettes as well, but I smoked cigarettes and drank a lot of alcohol, and it literally controlled me. I was looking for any opportunity to drink alcohol with somebody. So after work, I would go drinking with people that drank, you know, any opportunity. And it was quite chilling. What was it like for you, Anita, being a young girl, kind of a young woman, and kind of working in that industry and dating?
I was so lucky that hard to imagine I had a frigid few years in my life. But I did. It was hard to describe in the sense of um I was trying to make friends with myself again, whereas I'd always used sex as an escapism. I believed I was in control of them situations when really you're still being used, because even if they're not using you, you're using yourself and you're using,
Absolutely.
I was very lucky in the positions that I got in work. And I had relationships earlier. And then just before, about 2-3 weeks before I found out I was HIV, I started dating a guy. We'd not done the deed. So there'd been none of that. But we were really close. We'd really spent time talking, and he was a really nice guy. And I thought, I've got to tell him, if I just tell him that I don't want to see you anymore, he's never going to know. So basically, this is quite, I laugh now, right? But crazy. I had my mobile phone, the brick as they were, in between the sofa. And I called Alan, who lived not far away, and my social worker. It was also my friend. And then he came round to the house, and my son was in bed. And I said, I need to talk to you. And he's like, honestly, Anita, you're making me feel really sick. Like, and then joked, he went, well, I know you can't be pregnant. I was like, well, yeah. So I went, I'm going to have to tell you, I just need to say it. So I just went, I never knew. And now this guy he came from quite, he's quite strict, but a Caribbean family. And he was such a kind guy. He was very well educated. He was an accountant, but he'd not had loads of girlfriends because he was a bit of a heart and mind guy. He's not really. Well, and I just burst out crying and just said the words. And he just sat there silently, and he went to reach over, and I'm really tactile. So we've had this really tactile like few weeks together, and then I'm like, well, don't even touch me. And he started crying and was like, do you not want to go out with me anymore then? And I was like, what? I was like, what? And he's like, well, do you not want to date me anymore? And I'm like, but we've not even played hide the sausage. We've not done anything. You're not committed to me. And he's like, I don't care. He said, I fell in love with you, and now this is another part of you. And I was like, wow.
But I really need to say this, Anita. If there's anyone listening to this, right? If you are looking for love or you're dating, if somebody wants to be with you, they will, regardless of HIV. And if they run for the hills because they find out you have HIV, even though you cannot transmit it, it's not meant to be. They aren't the person for you. Yeah. Can I ask you, Anita, now, how do you live well? How do you live well with HIV? What are the things that keep you in a good space?
Honestly, I sound like one of these wellness gurus, but I'm not educated in it at all. So I'm only drinking hot water because, make mistakes. I think the one thing that people forget is they find out that they've got HIV sometimes, and then all of a sudden they become a wellness guru. They're eating bloody granola and drinking some made up shite or whatever. And I'm like, stop. Don't change who you are, because it's you that people are going to fall in love with. They're not going to fall in love with the fact that you, I don't know, don't eat bread and rubbish anymore. Stay you. The most important thing I say is stay true to you, because if you take too much of yourself away, you're lost. So you have to keep the core that makes you. The one thing I've realized is all these people come to you, and my previous partner said something to one of my friends, and he's like, I can't stay away from her. Her energy is just amazing. She draws me in. This is from a guy who put out my light, broke my wings, and wanted to keep me all to himself. And that was nothing to do with the HIV. He's just a narcissistic person. And it's when you realize that you go, anybody that says something dis to you, they shouldn't be in your life. You're going to go through a really hard time. And I sadly, I've only gone through it lately, where I've disconnected people. I've literally cut strings that have been playing with me, because I don't want to lose people. I don't want to offend. It must be my fault. I'm dirty. I have HIV. They're good. Look at them. They're married with a beautiful house and da, 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 da. But then when you look at it, you are 3 pay slips away from losing that house. You are one hairdo away from your husband not paying attention to you, or your wife not paying attention to you. So they're no better than you. And as soon as that clicks into place, that you are fucking amazing, all these horrible strings that have kept you go, and you're walking, you're like, it's free. And I've found, well, obviously you can tell I'm quite a quiet, shy, retiring girl, Lou.
Yeah, you're very shy.
But in 95, in 95, when we found out about the HIV, because of my knowledge around HIV, I straight away went into doing positive speaking. So I've been speaking in schools, to doctors, to nurses from day one. And I remember one particular day, an auditorium of doctors. My son hadn't been well, so I brought him with me. He was 9 then. He kind of knew, he knows everything. He'd been told the words HIV, what we did. And he was like really cool. He was in a wheelchair at the time. He could walk, but it was to save his energy. So he was like at the side of the stage. No one had paid any attention to him. And this lady went to stand up to leave, as a lot of well, if you are a qualified nurse, doctor, whatever, I'm sorry, but there are still some people that are ignorant. And I went, and I put my hand up, and I went, I'm so sorry if this has been a bit too much for you. She turned around and she went, it's fine. I just didn't know we had to meet somebody like you.
Wow. I mean, absolutely. And I think that, there are many people, even in the medical profession, who are still not educated about HIV, which is ultimately you take your medication and you cannot pass HIV on. You cannot. So the last question for me, Anita, if there's someone listening who's just got diagnosed with HIV, or if there's a family member or a friend or somebody who's just met someone with HIV, what would you say to that person?
I honestly would say I was very lucky and spoiled, Lou. I already belonged to an amazing LGBTQ group in Preston who covered me in a big blanket of love. I had George House Trust, and we had Body Positive Blackpool and Manchester then. Get in touch with your nearest place. I mean, in London, you've got Body Positive, you've got
there's loads.
Positively UK, you've got the Higgins Trust, you've got everything. Up here, you've got George House Trust, which has reached out to Liverpool now. But do reach out, even as a family member, get help, get advice, see what is available. And a lot of people don't want to come into these places. The fear is, to walk in is hard. Yeah, a gentleman walked in here last week. When he walked into the interview room to one of the counsellors, I had a little cry for him because he was so overwhelmed after being positive for 10 years. And it's his first time reaching out because of fear and stigma. And I would just say, We live, we survive.
Yeah.
And you must reach out. There are so many places. And this sounds awful,
Yeah.
Lou, but even reaching out to someone like you, I'm
Yeah.
sure you know Stephen from Dublin. Stephen does the photographs. He's an
Yes.
amazing
Yes.
creature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Useful. So we happen to be friends on Instagram, and somebody who he chats to saw me
Mm.
and slipped into my DMs. He lives in another country, and we chat all the time
Yeah.
because he doesn't have any other support.
Yeah.
So sometimes just slip into the DMs of anybody like yourself that
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
this amazing thing and gives hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Anita. I think, yeah, you are a firecracker, and I think you're a beautiful woman. And thank you so much for taking some time and talking to me today. But stay on the line, and we'll have a little chit chat
Thank
after.
you.
Thank you.
All right, Angel.
Thanks for watching Aunty Lou's Hour. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe.